Hi guys, well from unseasonably chilly Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up today, Dan, we've got an interview with Andrew Gold, podcaster, documentary guy, journalist.
A TV presenter for the BBC. Really, and all around fascinating cat. Who's going to tell us a spooky ghost story.
Woo!
Sorry, not ghosts. He's going to tell us a spooky demon story. So even better than ghosts.
Yeah, that works for Halloween, which of course it is today. Dan, happy Halloween.
Yeah, woo. What's your bet? Will anybody come to your door wanting candy? I'm going to guess not.
Not where I live.
But like probably very few trick-or-treaters in general. Because, tis now you could get something really spooky like a global pandemic disease. So there is that. But before we talk to Andrew, we got to get to some stories.
We got some news, Dan. Some stuff that happened this week. There's a big old world out there. And I've got a story about some witches who are trying to do something about all that. Trying to help out in the world.
Oh, okay. Normally you think of witches as being
where things once went wrong.
Okay.
They this last Friday, thousands of witches across the country decided to cast a binding spell on Donald Trump. And ensuring his failure in the upcoming election in just a couple days, actually.
Oh my gosh!
So
that sounds terrifying.
I hope it works. I hope sometimes,
unfortunately,
what's the thing about strange bedfellows?
Yeah, exactly.
But nonetheless, I apparently the witches have been working against Trump even before he was elected the first time.
Yeah, I remember there being a story about them trying that first election. I'm not overly confident that they're going to be able to succeed, judging by their past record.
Well, I don't know. Well, I mean, according to this article, Dan, that I have pulled up, the number of witches in the country has been on the rise. So if it's a numbers game, they probably have a better chance than ever. Researchers looking back, to 1990, estimated that there were only 8,000 Wiccans in the United States. And as of 2014, I mean, that's not, it's not yesterday, but the Pew Research Center estimated that there were somewhere between 1 and 1.5 million Wiccans or pagans in the country. That's quite the span. I mean, that's a good margin of error for them.
Yeah,
500,000 people. But
I'm just going to say, I think that right there, those statistics are proof that the internet's a bad thing.
What, that people have...
There's so many more people calling themselves witches at this point. Just shut up.
I mean, unfortunately, I don't want to make too much fun of witches or make it too personal, but I know of at least a couple women here in Salt Lake who were out casting spells this weekend.
Getting witchy?
Getting witchy. I don't know if it was... I don't actually have a lot of details about whether they were participating in this, but I would assume so. But I think that there's something interesting for happening in a country, right? When you go from 8,000 30 years ago, right, to possibly 1.5 million 5 years ago, right?
Wow.
There's something, I don't know what people, obviously there's a disenchantment with religion in general, right? And so this is maybe spiritual but not religious type thing, right? Where people are just kind of, they want to feel a connection, right?
Right.
And I think, to be honest, it's kind of fun. I mean, it feels like it might kind of be a little feminist in ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that that's part of the draw of Wicca, is that it is a feminist or at least woman positive religion, which in the religious world is vanishingly rare. So I'm all for it on that front. It's just I would love to see like numbers on Wicca and how many Wiccans like are genuinely believers in these spells and stuff, and how many just think of it as, like you say, kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
but if nothing else, they're really freaking out the Christians, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, because actually, this story comes from CBN. And
the Christian
tone of the article is kind of funny. So the opening paragraph says, as if battling House Democrats' impeachment inquiry against him wasn't enough, President Donald Trump will next have to face a binding spell cast by thousands of witches on Friday night.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
These, anyway, kind of fun. I love it.
All right. Well, I am going to take us to a story that involves a young one going to school, and she, I guess, in Tennessee. Although her dad is an interesting cat because we've actually encountered him before. His name is Pastor Rich Penkoski, of the Warriors for Christ DC chapter. They were the ones, they filed a federal lawsuit earlier this summer against Washington D.C., claiming that the mayor there putting up the Black Lives Matter. You remember they painted the road that leads up to the White House with Black Lives Matter, which was a brilliant bit of trolling on Mayor Muriel Bowser's part.
Right.
These dingholes decided to sue based on the fact that that the mayor had broken the law by espousing Black Lives Matter, which is a cult and is a denominational sect of the religion of secular humanism.
Oh my God!
So I think to them everything in the world is a religion. If you disagree with them, then you're just in the opposite religion of them or whatever. Anyway, these guys, he's suing again, this time because his 15-year-old daughter went to school. Definitely this was her own choice, and he didn't put her up to this at all.
You don't know.
Wearing a T-shirt that says, homosexuality is a sin, 1 Corinthians 6, 9, 10.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. So she was sent home, as is very appropriate. But he has decided to sue, and here's the thing: he's suing on a bunch of fronts. He's suing that this is a breach of her religious freedom and her free speech, and due process and equal protection, and this breaks Tennessee's Religious Freedom Restoration Act, all this stuff. Here's the thing. She should have been sent home because what she was wearing was something that would be deeply hurtful to other students at her school.
Right.
But that's not why she was sent home, or that's not the reason that the school gave, because schools are often run by ding-dongs. The reason that the school gave was that the shirt had a, quote, sexual connotation.
Oh, God.
Shut up, you idiot. No, it doesn't. It says homosexuality is a sin. There's no sexual connotation to that other than it has the word sex in the middle of it. But that's why they sent her home.
So they do the right thing for the absolute wrong reason.
Right.
I'm going to believe the school administrators on this one, right? Because you cannot, in their silly little minds, bring up gay people without them immediately thinking of sex.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it just shows how ignorant they are. That they're just as ignorant on the topic as this idiot pastor is. But it means that they've opened themselves up to a potentially successful lawsuit, if you ask me, because if that's their reason for sending him home or for sending her home, that's not a good reason.
Yeah.
That's not, or rather, the shirt isn't sexual in nature.
Right.
So they've failed. Anyway, that's happening. Who knows what'll come of it? But yeah, teach your people about why things are good and why or bad, because getting it wrong like that is so stupid.
Oh my God. Well, Dan,
yeah,
I'm gonna stay on the topic of homosexuals. We talked about last week Pope Francis opening his big fat mouth about same-sex unions.
Right. Civil unions.
Right. And this, it's been very interesting to see how the world has responded, because you have places like Venezuela where their president is now actually openly calling for civil unions to be adopted. And there's a couple other South American countries that it's sort of been in conversation, right? And they
Pope
feel like
the
Pope is actually probably going to influence the adoption of civil unions. And I know some people in this country were kind of scared that maybe that it was like, potentially trying to give cover for politicians who might want to scale back gay marriage and saying but we can do civil unions instead, right? Which is just bullshit. And if they scaled back gay marriage, if they succeed in that, they wouldn't give us civil unions in its place. But nonetheless,
because it's not different. It's exactly the same thing, you morons.
Like, it would be just lunacy to waste their time on that. But guess what? We're not completely out of the woods with gay marriage in this country. So, nor a lot of things. Thank you, Donald Trump and your new Supreme Court Justice. But anyway, Franklin Graham. We know that name around these parts.
Billy's boy.
He came out not as gay, of course.
As gay? Oh my God!
But against these statements by Pope Francis, lashed out, in fact, I guess you could say. And he says that the Pope's comments were unthinkable in light of the Word of God. And he goes on. He says, for Pope Francis to attempt to normalize homosexuality is to say that Holy Scriptures are false, that our sins really don't matter, and that we can continue living in them. He says this all on Facebook. If that were true, then Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection wouldn't have been needed. The cross would have been for nothing. No one has the right or authority to trivialize Christ's sacrifice on our behalf. So I think it was obviously predictable that American religious types would be upset about the Pope opening his mouth in what I see as an attempt to help or encourage societies to move on from this issue, right? Because basically what the Pope said is homosexual people have the right to be in a family. They are children of God. You can't kick someone out of a family nor make their life miserable for this. What we have to have is a civil union law. That way they are legally covered. Essentially, all the Pope is saying is we just need to live in a society, right? And be good neighbors. And I started thinking about it in terms of this is nothing more than what the courtesies that you grant a neighbor, let's say, who has a very different background from yours.
Right. And the whole point here, and this is what Franklin Graham doesn't want anyone to realize, is that civil laws aren't supposed to be about your religion.
They're not.
That's a separate thing that you should do on your own. But if you say my religion doesn't let me be a homosexual,
right?
Okay, But if you say my religion doesn't let you be a homosexual, now we got a problem.
Right. Exactly. Right. And so, I mean, I get why Pope Francis is probably, hesitant to use the word marriage, right? Because in a Catholic context, that is a sacrament, right? And for whatever reason, civil union sits well with him. And at this point, I'm just like, fine, because if lives are made better throughout the countries where his voice is going to have some meaning and sway, then I'm all for it. I say this is fucking amazing. And like for seriously, Venezuela, within days, the president, whatever, Maduro or whatever his name is, he was coming out and saying, yes, this is something that we need to do. And Maduro's a piece of shit, right? Like, yeah.
So great. Good.
Awesome.
Go Pope.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he may have accidentally done some good in the world. Great. Well done.
I don't think it was accidental. I'll give him credit.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take us to the Twitter sphere, where a member of the United States House of Representatives, this is Louisiana Representative Clay Higgins, has really, he's gone viral. And it's probably his first time going viral. Most of his tweets have, maybe 10 or 15 people responding. Okay. But then he did one tweet that got a little bit more response.
Oh.
So to the tune of 51,000 people commenting on it.
Oh, jeez.
7,000 people liking it.
Oh, this can't be good.
I'll just read it to you, and I'll let you make the call.
Okay.
Quote, my wife has the gift of premonition. Last night, she dreamed that federal squads were in our home, seizing guns, knives, quote, unauthorized foods, and stored water. They said we had been reported. Becca awoke crying. What happened to our freedom, she asked. What indeed?
What's an unauthorized food, by the way?
Right? What the fuck are you talking about? It's like we live in a country where that guy can tweet that and not fear losing his job as a representative of our government? What the fuck is happening?
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh my God.
The
well,
gift
a lot
of premonition?
Yeah.
Like, oh God.
Do you care to demonstrate, Clay, what other things she has premonished?
Well, you know what? We just need to start like keeping a log of these kind of comments, right? And just repeatedly bringing them up in public when they clearly haven't come true, right? Because nobody's coming for his unauthorized foods. But what is he? What is it?
Yeah, what do you have a stash of communion wafers in the fridge or something? Like,
I was going to think like
hell what are the liberal
on the
on the endangered species list?
Yeah. He's got bald eagle in the fridge,
Yeah, exactly. What are the liberal goon squads going to be mad that you're eating? You know what it is? They think that all of the liberals are like vegans or whatever, are raging vegans. So maybe he thinks
he doesn't have any tofu.
It's going to be beef. He's going to have his beef taken away.
Oh golly, that's amazing.
People tweeted back, of course, talking about things like, last night I dreamed that my cancer treatment cost $20,000 and I didn't have the money. And I woke up and it was true. And
I started to laugh, and that's bad.
Yeah. I mean, people have real problems, Representative Clay. You don't need to ask what happened to our freedom for an event that was your wife's stupid dream.
Oh, God. Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
My wife has the gift of dreams also. They're usually quite boring. And none of them come true. But
she still tells you about them.
She still tells me about them. It's true.
Well, Dan.
Yes.
Something happened. Probably what, week or two ago. Definitely over a week. But we didn't talk about it on the show last week, and we probably should have brought it up. It's the story of what's going on in France right now with the school teacher who was murdered.
Oh yeah.
Over having discussed some the prophet Muhammad, some cartoons and whatnot in the classroom. And I don't know all the details specifically of like exactly what went down.
Right.
As far as like, I do know that the lesson was about sort of censorship and freedom of speech and so forth and so on, right? Like that was the context. That's why he was bringing it up. Basically sort of making the point that in France, there should be no like off-limit subjects like that, right?
Right.
And it wasn't specifically, it doesn't seem like it was a specific attack on Islam, but they were having a conversation about that issue. Well, the story gets out and he ends up getting beheaded in the streets, right?
Yeah.
And it became a national just tragedy. President Macron has come out and publicly defended the cartoons in general. You know, there was years ago, there was the Charlie Hebdo,
right?
Inspired massacre that happened because of some cartoons of Muhammad.
Right. To be clear, for those who may not know, in Islam, you're not allowed to make a representation of Muhammad. So
yeah.
So
fair.
they find it deeply offensive.
Exactly.
But shut up. That means you don't draw pictures of him. It doesn't mean that we don't draw pictures of him.
Yeah, you can't tell us what to do.
Right.
Like that's, again, part of living in a free society. And, and I don't want to be the whole, like, if you're going to move to the West, you better play by all our rules. But kind of, if you move to the West, you got to play by our rules. And
you at least have to play by the rules where you don't cut anyone's head off. That's one of the rules that we do insist.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, the Muslim world has absolutely freaked out about Macron's response and sort of the general French response of outrage over this. They are calling for, in fact, it was the Turkish president Erdogan who has called for people to not buy French goods, to boycott French products.
Yeah.
And let's see, he says European leaders must say stop to Macron and his campaign of hatred, because again, Islam creates very sensitive people about these. Like they you think Christians think they're always under attack. Like Muslims,
well, in fairness, Muslims are frequently under attack. I mean, Christians
but
believe
they also
that they
attack.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They also like to attack. Anyway, so throughout the Muslim world, companies are boycotting French products. Kuwait has there's a chain of supermarkets that has pulled French products. There's also a boycott campaign in Jordan, Qatar. Qatar University has also postponed its French Cultural Week indefinitely at this point, which I have a feeling they're probably during this cultural week missing a lot of the core points of sort of like the French values of especially of like free speech and openness. And it's probably not just enough to have some baguettes and berets around.
Well, you can't get those anymore anyway. Good luck finding a decent wheel of brie.
Know. Oh, this would be awful. Pâté de foie gras. What would you do, Dan? Your wonderful glass of Bordeaux.
Yeah.
Dan.
It's all over.
Oh, how can you just can't. To be honest, there are a couple French products I would not want to live without. And so, it's a very interesting thing that's happening. The United States State Department has called on our two NATO allies, France and Turkey, to basically stop fighting.
Kiss and make
I'm
up.
just like, boy, that's choice. That's choice, United States.
Yeah.
The way we've been treating NATO.
Yeah.
Like, that's well done. Well done, State Department.
Sounds about right. Oh my gosh. Well, I wanted you and I'm going to take you back a little bit. I wanted to talk a little bit, remind you of a time, what was it, 4 years ago, something like that, where you and I went to Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh,
and were invited to speak at the Free Thought Festival hosted by the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And it was a delightful thing.
Yeah.
And we were the final speakers of the conference. And our opening act was there was some horrible mistake made, because we were not the headliners of the evening. No. But the headliner was a fascinating and wonderful character, one that we've talked to on the show before. Mm-hmm. One James Amazing Randi.
Yeah.
And we lost him this week at the age of 92. He passed away. And I just wanted to bid him a farewell and to chat just briefly about what an amazing character he was.
No kidding.
Because
absolutely no kidding.
In a world of snake oil salesmen and charlatans and cons, he was a voice of reason and sanity.
Yeah.
He was the preeminent debunker for a long time, and put himself out there as such. Kind of became quite famous when he went up against a guy named Uri Geller, who was a supposed psychic and claimed to be able
bender.
Yeah, he could manipulate metal with his mind. He could do all of these amazing feats, and he did them all the time, and people were just blown away. He had been studied by professors who were convinced of his powers. And then he went on The Tonight Show, then with Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
And Johnny reached out to the amazing Randi, or maybe Randi reached out to Johnny and said, "Hey, if you're having Geller come on, let me tell you how to make sure that he's not cheating."
Right.
And all he did was just say, "Okay, you guys supply the props for him. He'll want spoons. Right. He'll want things that move around, a ball that can move, a metal ball or whatever. And just make sure that he doesn't have access to them until the moment of."
Right.
And so the show opens. I've seen the clip. I'm sure you have, Frank. Anybody who hasn't seen the clip, go. You can see there's a documentary called An Honest Liar about James Randi, and it has this clip of Uri Geller going on the Tonight Show, and there's Johnny Carson. He pulls the sort of cloth off of all of these props and says, "All right, go." And Uri just sits there and goes, yeah. And then just says, "I'm sorry, I'm too tired. I can't."
Doesn't he kind of pick them up and kind of play with them a little bit? And then it's just like, I just can't. I can't. And he puts on a little bit of a show.
You see him. You can. Yeah. I'm surprised smoke didn't actually come out of his ears, because you see him desperately trying to process how to get himself out of it.
And didn't they have James Randi actually come out and sort of demonstrate how you could make a spoon look like it's falling apart? Or was that a different?
That was a different thing.
Okay, all right.
And he may have come on in different times, but yes, Randi was this guy who would go and the thing is, he was a trained. His background was as a magician. He called himself a conjurer, I think, he would basically, he would say, "I can't disprove that what these people are doing
Yeah.
I can't demonstrate for sure that it's bullshit, but what I can do is show you that I can do exactly the same thing, and I'm using trickery. So at very least, I can demonstrate that it can be done using trickery. He was also the guy that went in and totally blew the doors off of Peter Popoff, who was a televangelist, and he went in and found the radio frequency that Popoff's wife was feeding him information into his little earpiece as he as God was telling him, I'm going to heal. Is there Dorothy Smithers here? Oh, Dorothy, your gout is going to be healed by Jesus. And then she'd be amazed and whatever. And it was just Popoff's wife going, okay, fine. Now your next person is Dorothy Smithers. So it was amazing. He at one point also established $1 million prize for anyone who, under reasonable scientific conditions, could demonstrate any supernatural ability. If you're a psychic, great. Well, let's figure out a way that we can both agree would test your ability, and you can, and you'll win $1 million. If you're whatever it is that you're claiming you can do, telekinesis, fine, let's do it. And no one ever claimed that $1 million.
Yeah, amazing.
Lots of people tried, but it turns out that that psychics and all that stuff is bullshit. Otherwise, there'd be $1 million. There'd be somebody walking around with $1 million more. So, thanks, Randy, for everything you've done. Your legacy is astounding, and we will just assume that you're dead now, so you can't hear this. So,
well, I kind of like there was a Nova special when I was a teenager, right?
Yeah.
That I really liked. Like I thought it was absolutely wonderful, and I watched it a number of times. I must have recorded it or something because I remember it so completely well. And it was this guy going around debunking psychics and different phenomenon and whatnot. And it was just a one-off. It was a Nova, right? Yeah. So it was just this one time. And it was really like, the show was really clear about sort of the back end, about like how the trickery could work and how you do these things and blah, 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 blah. And a lot of different little tricks were shown and how they work. And it wasn't until much later, probably until like An Honest Liar came out, that I connected that it was James Randi that had hosted it. And so this guy was like, who knows how valuable that episode of Nova was on sort of helping me, young Frank, right? Like figure out like how to think more critically about the world I was being presented with. And so like he had this amazing and powerful impact. Like just he's a real loss. Like it's so too bad that some people have to get old and die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Although like, I'm very glad that he got old, because he turned more and more into a little wizard as he got older, and that's when we got to meet him, was in full on wizard stage, and that was delightful. So
he was wonderful.
Godspeed, Randy, and thanks for all the fish. Well, if you guys have anything that you want, that you'd like to comment about, please write into us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442. Stick around. There is more show coming up. Hey, Dan.
Yes?
There's something we like to do on this show, and it's playing clips, little audio clips of preachers making sense.
Right. The one thing that we definitely that there's an abundance of is preachers finding themselves aligning with reality. That's how preachers do. It's their big thing.
Absolutely. So this is Hank Kuhneman.
Yeah,
I guess that's how you say it.
I pronounce it Hankuna Matata.
Anyway, and he had a dream, right?
Yeah. Well, this guy, let me tell you something. Yeah, his dreams are better than any congresswoman's wife will ever be. And he knows what's going to happen. He knows the future, and we get to hear it straight from his Elvis-looking face. So I'm going to play it for you.
God said something. I had a dream, and I'll go very quickly. Before President Trump came down with COVID, this is a documented dream. I contacted several people and let them know. I was in a room with the president. He asked me to pray for him. I said, yes. He said, now pray the way that you pray. And I prayed for him. And he pulled me to his left ear, which is interesting, Marcus. It was his left ear because God wanted me to comfort him regarding the left. And I said to him, President Trump, they're going to pull you off of the campaign trail. You're going to be pulled off for a short season. Don't worry about it. It's for your safety. But the second thing is, there is coming a Hezekiah moment to your life. Here I was prophesying that he was going to get sick in a dream. And I said to him, I said, but just like Hezekiah, who reminded God of the good that he did for the nation and in the nation, you will have an encounter with God, that you will speak to him privately. But God is requiring this so that he could have access, just like he did with Hezekiah, to the nation, that will extend a time frame to the nation. And you know, President Trump said he talked to God more than you ever talked to him in that hospital. He cried out to God. And just like Hezekiah said, God, remember the good that I've done. So did President Trump. As a result, God extended what was a Hezekiah moment, 15 years, not only to the king, but to the nation. Because of what happened with President Trump just recently, he calling out to God has extended God's hand that's going to extend over 3 elections. That's what the Lord said.
Oh, well, I'm glad that he documented that dream, just like we now have documentation of him and his prophecy. So let's find out how good you are, dude.
Yeah, this part is documented for sure. You just said he's going to get not 1, but 2 more terms as president of the United States. So
no, he's not. No, he's not.
No,
he's not. Sorry, but he's not.
I don't know who Hezekiah is, but hopefully. Yeah, I assume he's wrong about that.
Right. Like this whole calling for Trump to have 3 terms in office, you know, we don't know. We don't know the outcome of this election yet. It's possible that Trump's going to have another term. As horrifying of a thought as that is.
Yeah.
But I feel pretty good in saying he's not going to have a 3rd term. Well, fuck you. No, there's no fucking way.
Yeah, the stuff that would have to happen would be outrageous.
The sequence of events to get him there, none of us want to live through it. But the other thing that I think is really interesting, and it kind of occurred to me while listening to this guy talk, because it's been weird to me how many of these preachers like to get up about some dream that they had where they were talking to Trump.
Yeah.
Right? And then they say that quickly, and then the rest of it is just this story about, and then I said to Trump, and then Trump did this, and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's just this trick to put themselves in the room with Trump.
To make them sound like they had a private audience. And Trump, Trump listens to what I say in my dreams.
Yeah, exactly. In my dreams. Dream Trump really likes my prophecies.
He's really fascinated. So we like to talk.
It's so lame. So dumb.
Oh my God,
these guys.
Well, we had somebody write into us. I wanted to get to. This is from Dan in the Catskills, who says, "Hi guys, I just wanted to let you know what they taught me in Catholic school was that the Pope himself is fallible." This is because we were talking about the Pope, and we had talked about how he was supposedly infallible. So how could he have gotten?
And you put a call out. To explain
exactly. Because how could he have gotten things wrong? Because he keeps saying things, and then, quote, the Vatican keeps coming out and saying, no, he didn't mean that.
Right.
So Dan says, what they taught me in Catholic school was that the Pope himself is fallible, but his official edicts on matters of faith are infallible if they are spoken from the chair of St. Peter or written as an official papal bull, and these are relatively uncommon, with only 5 since 1950.
Is it a literal chair?
I hope so.
Is there a chair of St. Peter?
You're the one that lived in Rome for 2 years. Shouldn't you know that?
don't know.
Go see the chair.
They got a lot of weird things that belong to people, and including body parts that belong to people.
Yeah.
But I bet it's like a throne or chair. Hey, write in. Tell us.
Exactly. Now we need somebody to write in to clarify that thing. All I want in the world now is for a pope to go just barely crazy enough that they go and sit in the chair and they're like, okay, these are all official things. Everybody ready? Okay. Weasels are now food. Everybody should be eating those. Also, swimming with the dolphins is the same as praying to Jesus. And just
no, people shouldn't be swimming with dolphins. Like,
I just want a crazy pope.
End this.
What I'm saying is I want a crazy pope.
No, he should. But if he's going to be crazy, denounce swimming with dolphins.
Okay, fine.
Like that needs to happen.
But come out as being so pro-gay that it's not even funny.
And pro-weasel, I'm fine with pro-weasel.
Well, that's going against Leviticus, so I don't know how that's going to work out. Do we have anybody to thank this week?
We do indeed, Dan.
Oh, good.
We have a new teacher by the name of Lil Stapler. Woohoo!
I love a good
away.
I love a good little stapler.
Lil Stapler.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for heading on over to thankgodimatheist.com and clicking on that support tab. That was really nice of you.
I believe that is the first bit of office supply equipment that we have ever given the priesthood to. So
just a little thing. I'm glad it wasn't a large stapler because it's harder to get your hands on lay on those things. Anyway. And then of course, as always, Dan, we have our top donor, our Lord and Savior to thank, Davis.
Woo! Well, thank you all so much. We appreciate you and everything that you do for us, and more show to come. Hey, Frank.
Dan.
It is the spookiest of all the seasons.
Oh my God!
Here we are.
It's
that
our
is
favorite
election
holiday.
season. Oh no!
American
right.
elections. You're right, Dan.
I'm talking about the Halloween type season, and we decided that we would bring on someone who could tell us a very spooky story. So we've got Andrew Gold with us here. BBC presenter and journalist Andrew Gold. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming here, and you especially because you're going to tell us what I perceive to be a genuinely spooky story, which involves demons, and it involves but the demons are not really the scary part of your story. It's the demon. It's the guy who's trying to deal with the demons. That's the scariest part of your story. Do you want to tell us sort of where you went and what you were dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, from his point of view, I was probably the scariest part of the story.
Well, that's true. You're kind of a demon to him.
Yeah, we worked with that metaphor a little bit in the documentary, actually, because there's a bit where he's shouting about the devil, and you can sort of see me walking out of his church and stuff. But yeah, he's this was in Argentina. I was living there for a while, and there was this priest who is an exorcist. He was actually of the Lutheran denomination, but I think I think he's just sort of a lone soldier against the demons or whatever.
Oh yeah. And he did use that metaphor, right? He used a sort of war metaphor when talking about it.
I think that was all very exciting for him, and I think he had like all around his church he'd have like all this movie memorabilia, from The Exorcist and all of that kind of stuff, and he superimposed his face into like the character's face.
God. That's so weird.
So this was the thing. I was like sitting around in Buenos Aires where I lived, and I was just like looking into stories, and there's so much stuff in Argentina. I was looking at all these different things, and I just turned the TV on every now and then, and he just kept popping up on different channels. And the thing about Buenos Aires is it really is quite a lot of it is very modern and very much like Europe. It's very sort of almost like being in like a big city in Italy or Spain.
Yeah.
So you don't. I suppose you guys in America, you've got some weird TV channels as well, because it's not something we have. You know that thing of like the priests talking to you on on TV channels. I've not grown up with that stuff, you know.
We invented that shit.
Yeah, you did. Televangelism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, we just didn't have any of that. I mean, it must exist, but it's really not there. So,
right.
Yeah, it was weird for me to see this exorcist guy being taken. It's a very Catholic country, Argentina, so it was being taken very seriously, as he was like, you know, they'd have the news and then be like, and what do you think, Padre Manuel? And he'd be like, well, today Jupiter is going to be near to whatever, and so it means demons are going to be out and you've got to have a bit of garlic, and just loads of it was like a mixture of religion with like,
wow, yeah. I mean, that you've got like some Bram Stoker shit coming in there. You've got astrology. That's pretty amazing.
Oh, he's got it all, man. Because people just want to be entertained, you know. I think that's what a lot of religion comes down to. It's entertaining, it's exciting, and it gives you this idea that there must be something out there, so you're not going to die, and how wonderful. And the other thing is,
doesn't the entertainment element of this kind of delegitimize him in their eyes at all?
100%. Well, in my eyes.
In your eyes, yeah. But like, at one point in the documentary, he starts playing the theme song from The Exorcist.
Yeah. Tubular Bells, isn't it?
But the people don't seem to think that that's a dead giveaway, that he might be just a showman.
You know, he has a lot of followers and stuff, and he has this huge social media presence, and he the center of Buenos Aires, like I say, is quite modern, and there's a middle class there, like very present. In the suburbs where he works, it's very, very impoverished, and there's a lack of education, and there's very little talking about mental illness and things like that. So these people, if they were suffering from some sort of depression or whatever it might be, they don't have a friend, they don't have a teacher, they don't have a family member who's going to tell them what that is. So for them, they're feeling a lot of things like schizophrenia, for example, or very, very severe obsessive compulsive disorder can feel very similar to the kinds of things you'd expect from a demon, you know, like the urges and pushes and intrusive thoughts. Right. So they want to believe that instead of, oh no, you're going to have to go through 10 years of probably very expensive medical care, actually, no, I just have to go and turn up with this guy, and he's going to do a lot of whatever and fight the demon, and none of it's my fault, it's because of a demon, and I'll be better in 10 minutes. So, you know, the human mind's, I think, amazing at believing stuff, and he uses those stories, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So you start to investigate the guy, and you get some pretty good access. He clearly, especially at first, wanted you there. The publicity was tantalizing for him.
Yeah. I think it was this thing. It was like the next big stage. In his mind, he'd perhaps conquered Buenos Aires, or maybe even the whole of Argentina with his social media stuff. He'd done this like big time exorcism on this woman called Laura, or Paula, or she changes her name intermittently in the film, but she was like the big, you know, that was his blockbuster film, you know, and it went really viral and all this stuff. So it was like, okay, I've conquered Argentina, and now I'm in the big leagues. Someone from the BBC is here. So he didn't know that I was, you know, I didn't believe in any of this. I just said to him, I really appreciate your work, and I'd love to come and hang out with you, you know? And
so, and he said yes.
Yeah, what happened? I was talking at the time, you know, I didn't get this commissioned by the BBC because I hadn't worked with them before. I'd only worked before with like, there's a TV channel in the States called Fusion. And then they sold some stuff to HBO in the end, but it was like mini documentaries, and those were crazy things as well, you know, looking for UFOs with UFO hunters and all that kind of mad stuff. And you know what, I became quite interested. Obviously, I never believed in any of these things, but I became interested in like why people believe these things, what makes them believe in it. So yeah, I told the BBC, hey, I've got this idea, blah, blah, blah. And they were a bit like, well, you know, we don't really care that much about Argentina, to be honest. It's not, you know, our audience cares about what happens in England. That's just it's just how the game works, you know? So I was like, I've got to shoot this though. So I got a friend of mine who's a great director, and I said, like, come out to Argentina. We're going to have a great time. It's summer in Argentina. It's winter in England. You're going to love it. We'll go to the pool and swim and whatever. It's going to be great. And let's go and film an exorcist as well. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, there's an exorcist as well. Just come out. We'll shoot you. So he came out, with his girlfriend, convinced her to come out, and they came out for like 3 or 4 months, and he was doing like freelance work and all this different, stuff. And Exorcist guy, in that time for a few weeks, I'd been talking back and forward with him, and I told him, like, look, the BBC want to see a pilot first, which wasn't technically true, but it was just like, the BBC had said, like, we like this story, but it's not something we're going to put our money into right now. So I thought, I've got to film it. And he just said, he replied in all his emails, The Exorcist, in a very sort of medieval, religious, proper way that you don't expect in an email, blessed be the fruit or whatever. All that stuff. And he was loving it. He was really, sucking up to me, because it was like big English people coming to do whatever, I guess. So, yeah, he loved it. We started coming to see him do his stuff. We filmed over a period of like 5 or 6 weeks, and went back 2 or 3 times a week, and just sort of hung out and hung around the place, and started like looking into what he was really doing.
Yeah. Well, and you didn't just look into it. Yeah. You got to participate.
Oh, yeah. So that's another thing. So, I mean, I guess I thought this was going to be quite funny. And, sometimes, again, it's a very British tradition, but you have American versions of them, I'm sure. I mean, Michael Moore sort of does he's a bit too political, maybe. But just, it's fun to take part in the thing that I'm doing,
Sure.
And, I thought this is going to be, like, quite funny. And it is funny, so as you'll have seen, I'm a bit mocking. I mean, maybe the closest that sort of Sacha Baron Cohen, the Borat stuff. It's that kind of. We've got you know what I mean, the Borat guy?
Yeah, of course. But you're not there trying to trick anybody or present yourself as anything that you're not. You're just there as you.
I think I equate it to the Sacha Baron Cohen thing, and it's something that actually doesn't sit well with me. I regret it in some ways, but Sacha Baron Cohen obviously is so over the top, it's ridiculous. But I was sort of presenting something that wasn't me, because I was pretending I was somebody who might give what he's doing a chance, or a fair trial, so to speak. And that was just not what I was doing. I was asking him questions about, so do you see vampires every now and then, and stuff like that, and he thought I was asking him serious questions, Well,
but it turns out, right?
Yeah,
he ends up like admitting to like seeing certain things, right? And,
I didn't expect. I thought, how far can I push it? So that's how I felt, very Sacha Baron Cohen, if you know what I mean. I felt very right. And what about vampires? And I thought that was when he was going to be like, well, but obviously vampires are fictitious, come on. And he didn't. He just kept, staring at me straight face, and just like, we've seen vampires, we've seen levitation, seen her heads turn.
Levitation.
Levitation. And so I was, doing the whole thing of keeping a straight face, but making fun of him. That's what I was doing. And it's not that I feel bad about that, because I think he's not the nicest person. It's just, I don't know if I would necessarily do that now. It was a couple of years ago I made the film, well, you know what, actually I would do that now, but that's how it started. And when I participated in the first exorcism, I got to ring the bells that apparently stave off the devil. That was something that in my mind was going to be funny, and seeing this woman sort of splayed out before me, going through what I consider to be, an absolute mental breakdown of the highest order. And it's not often you see someone like that. I can only equate it to like a pregnancy or something, especially because he often had women and screaming, and they're expelling something from within. And that kind of vulnerability, it's like, I'm not qualified to be here, let alone participating in the very thing that's making her act this way.
Right.
So me and my
I can see that as being a pretty harrowing moment when you realize that you're participating in something that might actually be hurting someone.
Yeah, that's the thing. That was what it was. And I think me and David is the director, David Hayes, who came out to film with me. And again, we were just such a light film team. It was just me and him, and then sometimes we had like a friend come along and help with the sound, but often it was just the two of us, and we just exchanged a glance like, oh my god, we're in over our heads here, what are we doing? And he's thinking like, what have you brought me out here for, like, to Argentina? It was because in the film you get like, we show 2 or 3 exorcisms. We showed 2, and then there's bits of a previous one as well that wasn't what we weren't there for. that we show 2 or 3 minutes of each one, but I mean, they took over an hour each time of just screaming like you've never heard. And twisting and turning, and as if they were in The Exorcist, the film. So we made it. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, I just thought that was actually something that stood out to me, was sort of the performative nature of the whole thing, like and that they sort of know what to do. And I think later on in the piece, you kind of hint at it, that there's like these cues that are given, like when the priest is like pushing on your head and trying to push you backwards, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you got a blessing. You got a big old
but there's obviously they're giving them cues somehow, or they're picking up, like they know to scream, they know to do these various things. And I was just wondering about the process, because that one girl took like 20 some odd minutes before she really started getting into it. And I don't know, can you speak to that maybe a little bit of like how do you end up getting how do they get the performance out of these people? Like, it's so bizarre to me.
It's really weird. I think that probably answers better the question you were asking before about, like, how do people fall for the whole superimposing his face onto posters of The Exorcist and playing the music and stuff like that. I mean, you could look at that. That is him giving them a sign. He's saying, if you haven't seen the film, this is what it sounds like. This is what it looks like. This is what you're supposed to do.
Oh, interesting. So,
they've all. I mean, if you're going to see an Exorcist, they've all got, it's a poor area, but they've all got YouTube and stuff, so they've seen how exorcists are supposed to go.
Right.
I spoke to, in the film, obviously, a psychiatrist who had some of these young women that he was exorcising in his care because they had schizophrenia and things like that. And he sort of talked about suggestion and placebo. What was really interesting was just literally this week, I think, for my podcast, I spoke to a hypnotherapist, and I said to him, can you just watch my Exorcist film beforehand, because I'm going to ask you a bit about that. And he said 100% that is hypnotism. That is what I do. And I was like, wow.
Interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So so it's going to work every time, almost every time. Some hypnotism doesn't work, right? If you're not willing to let yourself be hypnotized. But anyone going for an exorcism is going to be the most sort of vulnerable and open people. So they're always going to react.
They're primed to want it to work, so they're going to sort of do the things that you would do.
Exactly. Did you guys see on Netflix? Do you know Darren Brown?
No, I don't think I do.
You would love Darren Brown. Darren Brown, he's a hypnotist as well, but he's like really famous guy. His shows are on Netflix, and there's one called Miracle, and he.
Oh, I have seen that.
Oh yeah,
yes, so interesting.
Yeah, so he literally says, he goes up on stage and says, "I have no powers. I don't believe in God. Any of these things and I'm still going to cure all of your ailments." So people come up to the stage like an old-fashioned evangelical church. They come up on stage and say, "Hey, I can't read," and he sort of does something. He says, "Can you read now?" And they go, "Yes, I can read now." And he cures their bad back. "Is your back better?" "Yeah, my back's better." After the show, it all goes back to normal, but it must be the adrenaline and the whole thing. But he shows
just
how
any
that
number.
works.
But he does a faith healing. With no faith.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
And you say that's old-fashioned, but we live in the United States. That shit happens here still.
No, I know. He does it, and it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing that even when people are told this should not work, this won't work, there is no God or anything, it still works. Which is why I like the idea now of having just done this podcast with the hypnotherapist guy. I like the idea of, if I ever need therapy for anything, he said it's really frustrating because we hypnotherapists are always the last resort of any kind of therapy. He said we should be the first one. Like, forget talking everything through. You'll be doing that for 20 years. Come here, we'll get inside your psyche like an exorcist would do, but without any God or anything like that, and we can help you change. And the people who had exorcisms did get better. They did. That was what was like really frustrating for me, I suppose, was that the exorcist was right every time.
And you do talk about that in the film, that you interview one girl that you were present for her exorcism, and she and her family are there talking about how well it worked. She's herself again. She doesn't have problems that she had before, and it worked.
But it doesn't turn out, right?
It doesn't turn out to have been a permanent solution, though.
No. No. And because at the end of the day, and I think it can cause more harm than good, because I think it's one thing going to hypnotherapists and you're very aware of what he or she is doing, what they are doing to you and what the process is and everything like that. And it's a bit, you are sort of plastering over cracks to an extent, but maybe that the deal when you go in. Right. If you believe in an exorcism or in demons and stuff, you don't. You're told about all this paranormal nonsense and it's going to mess with your head. This young girl, Candela, she's 17 years old, and she's like, she was slitting her wrists and things, and this is, as clear cut a case of somebody with some form, I'm obviously not a doctor, but some form of depression or whatever it might be. So it's not helpful for her she has to deal with the root issue, and she's not doing that. And she had a good year, because I stayed in touch with her after the film, she had a good year of feeling much better. And that's as far as suggestion and placebo could go in her case.
Yeah, it's and it is tricky, right? It because you want people to feel better.
Yeah.
But boy, that's one of those things where if you feel, if she ends up feeling better for a minute, but she has not addressed the root causes of anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's very likely that that she'll end up being worse off than when she started out.
It's a traumatic thing to go through. I mean, she'll never forget that, even if in many years' time, she's an atheist and she doesn't believe in this stuff. She'll always remember what that process was like, what she went through. It was totally unnecessary. But you can also see, I mean, I don't have any kids, but I can't imagine, whenever I've heard people talk about having a child who has, whether it be, anorexia, which she had as well, bulimia, depression, those kinds of things, and you're helpless. You'll try anything. Yeah. And they were so desperate, all of them, to believe that this guy was right and that she was fixed, because they said it straight after the exorcism, didn't they? They were like, "She's much better." And I was like, "We haven't even spoken to her yet. She's better." So, that's belief.
Oh my gosh. So, I'm curious how it felt for you to be in the room, seeing these things, hearing these people screaming on the ground while a man yells at them over top, because it's an alarming process. The entire thing is quite scary, actually.
Yeah, I think it's a really weird thing when you're like a documentary TV presenter, like you're the on-screen journalist, so you're walking around again like Michael Moore or whoever. That's because it's a really big tradition in England that I don't think is as big in America, that kind of documentary. That's why I always mention Michael Moore, but like I say, he's much more political, as but when you have that, it's almost like a shield of armor, and you sort of, I guess that must be what Sacha Baron Cohen does as well. You feel a little bit invincible. You're always aware of the camera, and you're sort of caught in two minds all the time. For example, if you're speaking to someone who you've grown to really care about and they are really suffering, you obviously feel terrible for them and it's awful. And then there's another part of your mind that's going like, "Oh, this is quite good TV." And you don't want to admit that to yourself, that you're enjoying that. It's horrible. But I do believe that we all have sort of a selfishness within us, and it doesn't mean we can't also be altruistic. But so when I'm in the room with these during the exorcism, as I say, the first one was like such a shock that even having the camera there was like, I don't know what to do. I've got, especially because it's just me and my friend David. So we're just like, what are we doing? Felt very scared for her. This was Natalia, the first one. She's a bit older, maybe 30 or 40. And just, she was hearing voices in her head. So you go back and forth between sort of fear for her, a tiny bit of excitement of like, what have we just captured on film? You want her to feel better, and you feel a bit desperate, and there's not. I'm just thinking the whole time, she's not gonna get better. This might be great for our TV show. This might be great for her for 5 minutes, but it's not going to help her. So you do feel a bit helpless, I suppose. That's what I took away from that.
I'm fascinated. I think that what you did was I mean, you're out there exposing something that's happening around the world frequently. And yet it continues. Do you have any plans to revisit the topic, or what are you working on now? Anything cool that we need to know about?
Yeah, I don't know about revisiting the topics. I do love talking about it, but I don't want to end up being pigeonholed as like the exorcist guy, you know?
Sure.
But I do love, like I say, looking into, I think the same as you guys like as well, looking into, I think it's all, you know, fun being an atheist and stuff. And I myself, I grew up in like a Jewish family, and we had to learn like to read Hebrew and stuff like that. And you look back like, what was that? You know, what was I doing? But I was a kid. But it's really fascinating for me. Really fascinating. Like, why do people then grow to adulthood and still believe this stuff? Like,
right.
Crazy. So other stuff I did was like going to look for like UFOs, for example, in the mountains in Argentina. And it was always like, why do they want to believe so much? Why that they're seeing, not that there aren't aliens out there somewhere or whatever, but I'm sure as hell they're not like walking through this woman's living room, you know, the night before. So so I've got this podcast called On the Edge with Andrew Gold, and I talk often with like you know, I spoke with the son of the founder of the Westboro Baptist Church. Do you know?
Right. Yeah. Nathan Phelps.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I had Nate on the show. And then I had like an ex-Muslim called Ray, whose family were trying to kill her because she broke like the blasphemy law and stuff. She had to move to England from Bangladesh. And it was actually, you know, quite harrowing talking to her. But yeah, we got like an ex-Hasidic Jew as well, a woman who came away from that. I mean, that world is just nuts as well.
Yes,
and we had a Mormon as well. Yeah, but that wasn't really a religious one because I sort of moved back and forward between different themes and whatever happens to excite me that week. And this was a female Mormon psychopath called M.E. Thomas.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so she's an actual psychopath, and she told me like what it's like to be a psychopath.
Well, if you ever want a male Mormon psychopath, Frank is available. He can talk to you.
That's the reason I got in touch. I wanted to get Frank on the show at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
Get into his mind.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I said to her, like, how would you feel watching the screen now if somebody came from behind the camera and stabbed me 100 times? And she was like, Andrew, I don't think I just don't care. Right. I was like, okay, luckily that's not going to happen. But and she's like, yeah, a psychopath has no empathy, but she thinks that like the Mormon religion, having grown up there, is like a good way to live by. You know, she needs strict rules because she's not the type of psychopath who wants to go around killing people. She's more the type who's just like, I want to live a normal life. I just happen to not have any empathy.
Right.
Wow.
Well, you know, what you've just said to me, you're maybe the first person that's made me happy that there's a Mormon church in a long time. So what a wonderful thing you've done.
Yeah.
Well,
great.
Andrew Gold, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Say it one more time what the name of your podcast is and where people can find you.
Okay, yeah, On the Edge, because they're people who are edgy. On the Edge with Andrew Gold. I've got the same name as the singer from the 80s. I don't know if you know him, but he was American.
He was the first one that came up when I Googled you.
That bastard. It's just,
You'll beat him soon. Beat him soon.
He died about 5 years ago, so I'm doing better than him right now. I mean,
exactly.
I remember seeing that in the newspaper, Andrew Gold dies, and I had to sort of pinch myself for a second, but it wasn't me, obviously. But he sung some big songs, actually. People sometimes sing them at me, and so now
lovely.
Yeah, now I know them all.
Right, I'm sure that's great.
Yeah, On the Edge with Andrew Gold, and I've got a website just called andrewgoldpodcast.com, and you can see all like the blogs and stuff. Yeah, you can get it all on Apple, Spotify. Like, just put it into Google, you'll find it. It's on a million things everywhere, you know. And Twitter.
Is there also links to your to the documentaries there?
Yes, yeah, on Andrew Gold. Yeah, that's exactly right. Good point. andrewgoldpodcast.com. Then there's a bit called documentaries, and there'll be a link to the Exorcist one, and then there's also a link to like the UFO video I did, and like quite a few different videos and things, and you'll get all the podcast stuff there. So
nice. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, Andrew. It's been fascinating talking to you, and
let
us know when you're doing something interesting in the future.
Oh, I will do. And I thought to say, follow me on Twitter, please, if you want, which is AndrewGold_OK, and it's Instagram as well. But
well, that was delightful. Thanks.
Indeed.
Thanks so much again, Andrew. And for anyone who would like to say anything about Andrew's interview or any of the wonderful things that we've talked about on this week's show, please feel free to write into us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Yeah. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist. Click the like button.
And while you're there, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge and request to join. It is a closed group. We will let you in. Also, find us on Twitter at TGIAtheist. And you know what, Dan?
What?
If anybody out there likes what they hear on the show each week and would like to continue hearing it, please go to thankgodimatheist.com and click on the support tab. We can't do the show without you.
Yes, our donors are our favorite people, so go be one of them. Speaking of our favorite people, thanks so much to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their music.
And Gordon Johnston for the use of his music.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in.
Bye-bye.